Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief, or otherwise known as the Eat as Many Pancakes with Your Chopsticks as Possible. I'm just putting on Thomas's fun gift that he that he was sharing with us before we started our broadcast here today. Get a little chuckle. In fact, actually, Thomas even posted the link in the text box there. So by all means, if you want to copy that, I think I'll try and throw that in the library for later on. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Frivolity. I love to see the amount of participation on the site. And actually, I was just scrolling through some of the rooms, and I saw that Sjord wished all the ladies in the ladies' lounge a happy Mother's Day. I was away, of course, through that, but happy belated Mother's Day to all the ladies on the site. So, suppose actually we're coming up. It's already June. When's Father's Day? Is that June or July? I don't know. But anyway, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Frivolity, and we've got our full contingent of top-notch analysts here for you this morning. We'll start off with Mr. Hyperwave himself, the mayor of Vienna, driving the bus as always. How you doing this morning, Alex?
Hey, Brian, I'm pretty good. I'm actually coming from Linz today, so
All right. So, is it? Do you call it? You don't call it a dacha, right? That's Russian, isn't it?
no, it's a mansion. It's actually two mansions tied together.
Hmm. All right. Anyway, regardless, good morning. Nice to have you on board. And whenever you're driving the bus here, I know that screens will be shared correctly and hyperwaves will be identified, and it always makes me feel more comfortable when you're around. So thank you. And as I had pointed out just a moment ago, coming from a greasy spoon somewhere in the middle of Shanghai, I'm not quite sure. Thomas, how you doing this morning, Mr. Bear?
I'm good. I had a nice beach vacation for a day and a half, and now I'm back and ready to look at the market. We had a nice hangout yesterday doing the SOF meeting. We came up with a couple of cool names.
Yeah, and I really sort of like what's sort of developing there because I think, as I had sort of said in the hangout, and Zach, of course, is hanging out with his son. And I mean, what a great guy. If you guys have the opportunity to get to know Zach, I mean, the guy actually has dropped everything to go on an overnight camping trip and be the sort of adult designate for his boys and in Hawaii. I mean, just what a great dad. But nonetheless, Zach found us a couple names to chew on. And then, Thomas, of course, has a little bit of a medical background. So it's great when we have these crazy ass pharma names to run the ideas by him. He seemed to be pretty positive about a weekly W that Zach found. And, when I hear that, I mean, Brian and his weekly W's. And then when I hear Thomas say, you know what, actually, this might actually have some legs. I got to go out and grab some. Unfortunately, this, ironically enough, this isn't an SOF play because it's not option eligible. But I just went and bought some stock here this morning. So I bought half of the position on the weekly W level. And on any kind of pullbacks against the bottom end of the range, I'll look to add a little bit more. But, just an FYI, if I see a half decent idea, I'm more than ready, willing, and able to pull the trigger. And I did. So thank you very much, TRI. 1 + 1 = 3. Absolutely love it. Makes me so happy to get up in the morning, as Alex was sort of saying. This is a great community to wake up to and start your day with. Just you people are you're the bestest. Could bring me to tears. So before Brian bursts into tears, let's have Thomas take the ball here. We got you in the saddle. And of course, I don't think we've talked to you in a few days. So I'd love to hear what's on your mind and what you're seeing in the market. So fire away, sir.
All right. We'll start off with our usual market watch headlines here. And no surprise, stock market is down again. Looks like headline is something about Mueller charging Trump, and or he was going to charge Trump. I don't really care about this kind of headline stuff. This is all political stuff that, markets don't like to see. But again, you guys are going to get so sick of hearing this at this point, is it's all about the trade war. And it's almost like every day there's it's almost like what should we call it? It's almost like a missile being sent across the seas here. China imposing tariffs on us, we're imposing tariffs on them. And the really sad part about all this is that this really is just hurting the American people, and it's really not doing what Trump thinks it's going to be doing. I think Brian's girlfriend, Dr. Pippa Malmgren, was on in a special podcast the other day, and she was talking about how the Trump administration's negotiation tactics with China is basically about humiliation. And basically she said that no one likes to be humiliated. Even the teenagers in the playground don't like to be humiliated. Humans do not respond well to this kind of negotiation tactic. And for whatever reason, Trump thinks it's going to work. So it's some kind of art of the deal bullshit that unfortunately at this point is going to become a prolonged situation. So I think I left you off last week saying, hey, maybe we do end up getting a trade deal, but does that come before or after Trump is either running for re-election or the new president comes in? The other interesting fact about the whole matter is that Trump is putting on a deal for China that is very unique, that no US president has really ever offered China. And the fact that they could potentially get this deal is something that they realize is a once in sort of a generation, maybe even longer situation for the Chinese to attain a deal like this. So they're not treading lightly here either, because they know if Trump is not reelected, that same deal will not be on the table. So we're kind of stuck here. And a lot of people are talking about Cold Wars happening between China and the US. In fact, that we may already be in one. And the fascinating thing is that all of this news about how bad this trade war is just seems to be on sort of like one guy called it page 14 of the news. And the American people are just kind of like, okay, it's in the background, it's there, but it's not front page headlines. People are still glued to this, let's impeach Trump idea, which it's like, let it rest at this point. It's not happening. But
so, I think Mueller at 8 a.m. Eastern time was going to have like a big presentation. I couldn't find any sort of links to the actual video, but did you watch it?
No, I don't really, I'm not going to get caught up in that stuff, right? I'm very much a proponent of watching the news and making sure that you understand, making sure I understand how all of this fits together. And sure, right, like some blockbuster that comes out from Mueller implicating Trump in something would be disastrous here for the markets. But I mean, down 300 points, is this the Mueller report? Is this, ongoing trade tensions? I think it's everything, right? I mean, things are really screwed up right now, but we're not a news site. What's
People
that?
in the lounge are saying they watched it. Nothing really came out of it. So, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Just appreciate that. If anything, the headline that caught my attention overnight was China saying that they control a fairly large percentage of the world's rare earth metals.
No. So that's not right. It's not that they control a large portion of the rare earth metals. It's that they have the only refinery on the planet that can process the rare earth metals, because nobody else on the planet wanted to do it because it's so toxic to the environment. So China's the one that's got all the refining facilities in order to make those materials and minerals usable. But it's not that there's the only place that has the minerals.
All right. So I stand corrected. Thank you, sir. But the headlines that I read were that they were going to start using that as sort of a weapon in the trade war.
Yeah.
So, and, I suppose the interesting thing is you can't write better fiction than reality. You never know how the hell this story is going to ultimately play out. Mr. Trump is just assuming that he's going to win at this, but this could all just blow up in his face. Anyway, only time will tell. We'll see what happens. I think I've been talking lots about this actually just being a very normal seasonal correction in the stock market. Do the stock guys spin this as, oh, well, this is Mueller, this is Trump, this is blah, 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 blah. I would still be leaning into the, sell in May and walk away. Institutions are just, looking profits. And if I'm not mistaken, I think, we had some pretty well-defined downside targets, 38.2s. I don't know whether you can see on my screen, bear AB equals CDs. You can see where value is. I wouldn't be surprised once this is all said and done, we actually have to tag the bottom of value here. To me, this just seems so cliche. And yet, obviously people are going to, turn on their TVs and see stocks down a huge chunk, and they're going to blame it on Mueller and China and all that crap. But anyway, what are you seeing?
I mean, I'm seeing a weekly confirmed divergence here on the S&P now. This is a bearish divergence.
That's a weekly chart of the SPYs, and it's got that massive gap up top.
Yeah, it does. There you go.
That tells you right there that you can absolutely pretty much set your watch to the fact that we're going to have to go back up and fill those gaps in at some point. Weekly gaps do not like to be left open.
Yeah, there was a weekly gap left here, which is now filled in. There's a bunch on the downside too. There's more than a couple, actually. And interestingly, there's one all the way down here, just shy of 250. That looks like it needs some attention. I don't know if we go. I mean, could we go that low if things get real fucked up? I mean, sure.
Sure. Ironically enough, I think we could probably actually, we defined our trading range. There's the top end of the range. Basically, that gap up top. And there's the bottom end of the range, that gap down below. So, it looks to me like the stock market's got basically about, S&P points. This would be about 50 points. So what is that? About 5,000 points on the Dow?
Brian, I'm having issues screen sharing there. Your screen.
Oh, I apologize. I kind of messed that up, and I keep interrupting.
No. It's just that you're not screen sharing for YouTube, I guess.
Okay. Well, if anything, that's bad. Oh, actually, I see it on YouTube now. So
yeah.
There is the chart, and I'll try and shut the hell up and let Thomas talk. Go ahead.
I like when we have this back and forth. This is what gives the entertainment.
Me too. I remember Brian self-deprecating, right?
Self-deprecating? Yeah, I guess I don't know. I got a potty mouth. Anyway, this almost looks reminiscent of a potential Head and Shoulders. It's not the nicest thing in the world, but maybe if you kind of get the idea that this might be your left shoulder head. Again, this is messy, but could we kind of do something like this and then take a big dump? I don't know. That might be on the table.
And what is that? That's a weekly chart, right? So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Puts us into July.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether we find the bottom through June, early July, then rally up through the summer. And then you can sort of see that funny little notch on the profile right up there at value high on your chart. That's probably some stiff resistance, and that's into those gaps there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem now is that we're sort of midstream right now. Pretty tough to take a trade on this at this point. We're going to have to let this develop a little bit more.
Yeah, it's kind of like peeing. You don't want to cut yourself off midstream because it's very uncomfortable. Kind of like you don't want to take a trade midstream. There you go. You'll remember that for the rest of your life now.
Okay, there's a visual. You like that one, Khalid? Khalid's the first one to, and Alicia was the first one to laugh. And it was so funny with JoJo, man. The one thing that would drive her crazy is if I interrupted her while she was trying to pee. That's a big no-no for the ladies, if I'm not mistaken. They don't like that.
Hey, it's uncomfortable for dudes too. Anyway,
Okay.
We should probably move on. I was listening to a really fascinating commentary from Kevin Muir, the macro tourist. He's the co-host or the sidekick or whatever, the guy that does the market huddle. He had a special segment. I guess I was on the car a lot over the weekend, so I was listening to podcasts, and one of not only did the Peppa Malmgren 25-minute one stand out. So if you're interested about
cool. If you could find that link, I always like to listen to her. She's so smart.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely hook you up with that. It was a really nice listen. If you didn't listen to her last one where she talks about Trump and his plan to drop out before the actual vote for the election and start his own news network. You should probably listen to that, because she also talks about drones. She does a lot of work in that sector. And she made a comment which was fascinating, that the Chinese are the ones that produce all of these drones, and they found out that a lot of the software was actually uploading data from the US side. So anyone that has a drone here in the US and you've been flying it around, all that data, including images, video, GPS location, microphone data, was sent to the Chinese. So realistically, the Chinese didn't really need spy satellites. They just put one in every American person's hands, and everyone thought it was a toy. And they're just, they gave China all the data that they ever needed to sort of surveil us. And sure, arguably it's in all of our data, in our chipsets that are in our phones, our computers. Like, it's a disaster. Anyway, listen to her. It was fascinating and yet extremely scary at the same time. So if you're interested in that, just Google Macro Voices, and the link should be down there. You could listen to her. And then Kevin Muir was talking today, and he made an interesting point. I think I probably got this from them, but it's the Eurodollar futures, that I've been taking June over 2019 over 2020. And I know, Brian, you want me to move out to like December or something. They're still using June 2019 till June 2020. I'm probably going to have to eventually switch to that. But the interesting thing that they said was, not only do you already know from my commentary that that market is pricing in almost 2 rate cuts, they're also talking about how skewed that trade is, that everybody's on one side of the trade, and they're all expecting these rate cuts to come in. So they're basically giving away what he referred to as the puts on that trade. So if you wanted to buy puts on this trade, and again, this is kind of a little wonky and complicated, but basically the take-home story is that if the Fed were to hike, you would make a fortune, because everyone's on the other side of that trade. So that was one comment that he made, which I thought was fascinating, because now everybody's thinking the Fed has to cut. You're looking at things like a lack of inflation coming into the market. Did the Fed hike too far too fast? As Brian always says, the Fed always does things too far in one direction, and it seems like this may be one of those cases. The other thing is that now the Fed's making commentary, like the Boston Fed chief, whoever that guy's name is, he was talking about things like modulating long-term interest rates as opposed to the short-term, raising and cutting hikes right now. That was an idea that was floated in World War II, which is fascinating. So that might be on the table eventually. But, no one can really understand how the Fed can hike right now. And I think that's what's fascinating about this whole thing, right? Everybody sees it in one direction, and the Fed still does whatever it wants. I mean, it would just absolutely piss Trump off to no end if the Fed did end up hiking. Do I personally think the Fed's going to hike? I find that hard to believe too. But that's commentary for probably a more advanced discussion. And in the interest of time, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was something that, I don't actually have access to on TradingView, but essentially what they were talking about is fixed income. Everyone seems to be interested in fixed income. So what they did was they ended up looking at the volatility of the bond market. And there's a Morgan Stanley bond market volatility index called MOVE, or maybe it's MORE. Hang on a second, Morgan's, or it's Merrill Lynch actually. But regardless, I couldn't get access to it because I don't have a Bloomberg. Maybe I should try to do it on here. But
poor man's Bloomberg.
Yeah, I'm going to try that. Does MOVE or MORE sound familiar to you?
Not really, but you can always teach old dogs new tricks.
All right, let's look this up real quickly. So this would be the MOVE. Yeah, so it's MOVE. So let's see if I can get this on my cheap ass Bloomberg here. So MOVE. And basically what they were saying is that bond market volatility is extremely, extremely low, to the point where it's really not been this low in a very, very long time. So they're essentially buying bond market volatility to the long side to try to make money. So I tried to figure out, is there another proxy for me to profit from this? So there's actually the 10-year Treasury note volatility index. And sure enough, this is a weekly chart, but this thing's already kind of taken off in a way that this is almost like a weekly W too. Wow, look at this is interesting.
Well, the yield curve is fast approaching inversion here. I can understand why their volatility. This is actually an interesting commentary that you can have volatility to the upside.
Yeah.
So here's a situation where volatility is being injected in the market. Be interesting to see what your little volatility indicator was doing through the end of March there, and see what it was doing through the end of December, beginning of January there.
You talking about the VIX?
No, your 10-year U.S. Treasury note volatility.
Oh yeah.
So where is so you can see the spikes there. There was one there in the end of March, right? Then there was one there at the end of December, beginning of January, and you can see the spikes higher in price on my screen. End of December.
I think. Sorry to interrupt. I think Hangout is giving us the finger here.
That's okay. We love you, Hangouts. I can see it jumping back and forth here, so don't sweat it, dude. It's all good. All right, continue your story. I mean, look at those gaps. So, be careful here, people. Don't just FOMO this shit.
Yeah, this is probably a little late to the party, but I wish I had access to trading that move. And it's not actually here in the Bloomberg either.
Yeah, all I saw was and so you were actually able to get a what the hell is this place called? TradingView chart on that move?
No, it's not there. But let me actually show you the chart because I think it's fascinating to mention. And these are the guy's slides. So it's got all the data on it here. Here's this.
Look how poor old Eric is doing on his crude oil analysis.
Oh, no, no comment.
All right. What are we looking at here? 3-month euro dollar Merrill Lynch open volatility estimate move index. Yeah, okay.
So evidently in March, this thing ticked to an all-time low back down here. And now it's kind of starting to pop back up, but it's nowhere near where it was even, a couple years ago. So I think there's upside here, and he thinks there's upside here. I mean, can we play this? Is this a weekly chart? Can you see? This looks like it's a daily. So he's looking at this move index on the daily. And yeah, I mean, it looks ripe. Everyone's kind of funneling into bonds and trying to hedge away what's going on in the stock market. But I think that move may be understated so far. And if the market continues to move down, theoretically, bonds should perform better here. But I don't know, from the way the yield curve's going. Did you see how far the 10s and 30s are getting? Or the 10s and the 3s, rather. This is getting real.
Yeah, they're all going into free fall here. And I think, we did...
Am I still here?
Yeah. Brian?
Brian, you're muted, or maybe you just fell asleep there. All right, so it's just me then? Everyone can hear me, but not Brian. Okay, all right. Brian, I don't know what's going on here, but maybe if you join and drop out and join back in. I hope he's not talking away, hoping... Okay, there he goes. All right, in the meantime, when Brian comes back, here's your typical yield curve chart. You can see the inversions here.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Hear me? Hey,
Yeah, we're back.
Google's really messing with us today, hey?
I think you need to use Chrome for when you do the daily brief and just...
I am.
Oh, you are?
Huh. Yeah, I can't do anything on Brave. That thing's a piece of crap. But Alex was saying a few minutes ago that they're messing around with him. It might be because we're both logged in under this TRI video. That could be it. But
yeah,
no, it actually shows me logged in as my BBMish account. So no, that's not true. So yeah, I was just as Thomas was talking about yields. I'm not quite sure what I missed, but yeah, you can see the 2s, 5s, and 10s are all in free fall below Fed funds rate. So you can see the spread. I guess we have to call it the Fed spread now, is now sitting at 0.12, so almost at historic lows. I mean, I do hear what you're saying about the bond market and about the Fed, propensity to raise rates, but I'd actually argue that with this spread as low as it is and the euro dollar market, it also is rallying. I can't see the Fed raising rates, and if anything, I think probably we're getting, what we'll probably hear. This is just conjecture on my part. Is we're going to go through the normal seasonal dump. And my hunch is you're going to hear talk about plunge protection teams and all that crap. You should probably keep an eye on that treasury balance at the Fed. Is that starting to build up so that they've got ammunition to do plunge protection crap and stuff again? That's sort of the impression that I got. I would be very, very surprised if the Fed had the audacity to raise rates in this kind of environment.
What a FU that would be, Brian. Could you imagine? Trump's head would explode.
And actually, I've been watching videos lately of him. Man, he's put on a lot of weight.
Yeah, it's like a daily McDonald's dose he's getting.
Yeah, I mean, he's turning into a portly gentleman. So anyway, so when I look at like our conversations about inflation, deflation, I'm sure the Fed sees this. I can't see how the Fed can raise rates in this kind of environment. But I suppose there's crazier things that can happen. And really, the ultimate, I think you had the yield curve on there on your chart there a few minutes ago. The ultimate tell that will tell us that this market's done is those 30s tick. Actually, I mean, they still got a ways to go. So we might, I was showing these charts earlier in the week, and I mean, this is a runaway bull market now. And ironically enough, the biggest money that's going to be made in the market right now is being long bonds. But the problem is, do you want to come in on the long side of this trade now? I mean, you're very, very late. It is interesting to see, from what I understand, they're talking more and more and more about hard Brexit. So that's going to kick the shit out of the European economy. And these European bonds just look like they're on fire right now. And really, the end of the economic cycle, this really makes sense. You can't write better fiction than reality. Nobody could have said, well, some politician is going to bring this whole economy to a grinding halt over, whether it be in Europe, basically the UK is handcuffed and might have to go through even a few years of contraction as people sort of unwind business models that they originally had in place, or whether it be, United States throwing up trade barriers and tariffs, which, the sad part about it, all it does, like you said earlier, is it's just going to punish the consumer. That's the only people who really lose at the end of the day. You can't write better fiction than reality, but what does the end of an economic cycle look like? Yeah, it kind of looks like what we're seeing now. Don't be shocked. And if anything, I kind of like the idea of us really hunting the pharma names, and why that idea spoke to me so much coming out of the meeting yesterday. In that, pharma is supposed to be economically insensitive. So if we do actually go into the tanker, we should, pharma names usually outperform. So we'll see how that goes. Only time will tell. Where do you want to take our conversation next?
I'm just scrolling through some names. The VIX looks interesting to me. Gap fill going on right now. I mean, look, what is this? Like the most amount of down weeks in a row in the stock market since, I think they said 2010 or 11, something like that. So we're definitely in bad territory. But it's been a while since we've seen so much red across the board, and seeing the VIX start to pop up again. Could this thing ramp up? I guess it's possible. See, we did our 38.2 test, got rejected, but can you see the giant W that could potentially come in here? That looks pretty nasty. And the VIX trades differently than any other chart you'll look at. This thing behaves in a very different way, but I'm not sure I'm convinced I want to play this again. I managed to squeeze out a profit and close that out a couple of weeks ago. Other name that I'm still in is this railroad short. This is performing really well for me. This thing is just gapped lower today, so I'm really close to doubling up, and I think I own the $75 puts, so I'm very much well in the money now.
Good for you.
And-
Congratulations.
Thank you. And what else? The only reason why I've been doing this lately is because this one seems so easy and like so well correlated. This stupid GE. The puts and the calls are just so well priced every time I go to play this thing. So I managed to buy this thing, maybe a week or two ago, and here it is on the downside again, right? Once this M started coming in, I got two different M's in this thing. I fired off a short, I bought some puts, and this thing's doing pretty well again. So that's another name that I played, but I don't, these are all just like me going through this list. Is there anything else worthwhile talking about? I mean, other than macro, the pharma stuff that we went through yesterday. I mean, you probably heard Brian talk about the dollar yesterday, so we don't need to talk about that. The other thing that, you should just keep an eye on is this TIP TLT spread for inflation. I mentioned this last week, and this is something you'll learn through the class program. Really good way of evaluating sort of, is the market in an inflationary period or a deflationary period? I mean, God, look at this thing on a weekly basis. This looks super deflationary. We just put in this market structure here, nice M, and this thing's about to go all the way back down to, boy, testing the 2016 lows. So the Fed went too far too fast. It's an interesting chart to keep up there.
It's and historically, this will be a running debate. Was it the Fed's fault or was it the politicians' fault? Ironically, all you hear from central bankers is they want to have a higher inflation rate. They want to have a higher inflation rate. Well, I'm not quite sure why they would be raising rates as aggressively as they are if they want a higher inflation rate. They're not going to hit their inflation targets.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we're moving toward a new era in Fed policy where they start instituting things like, the modern monetary theory ideas, or they start
We might get into that kind of world. That totally is possible. But keep in mind, the Japanese for like 10, 15 years, ironically enough, they've actually been the biggest buyers of Japanese stocks. So we might get into an environment where the Fed's actually buying stocks. Imagine that, eh?
I guess it wouldn't surprise people. I mean, you just take a page out of Japan's playbook. If you really are interested to see how this could all unfold, just go take a look at what happened to Japan over the last 30 years. And it's almost like not a carbon copy, but it's pretty damn close. Anyway.
I think, and actually it was interesting because Trump was just in Japan over the weekend. And that's a whole can of worms that I don't think people really wanted to see opened up. It's fine, Trump hates China, China, don't get China, blah, blah, blah. But now it's spilling over into countries like Japan and stuff, and people I don't think are too happy about that happening. Yeah. So that's going to add more sort of economic uncertainty and, all that kind of stuff. Trade, remember this, write this down if you haven't learned this yet. Last summer I was going on about how trade wars never end well. And in essence, you guys were living the life of trade wars not ending well. And the worst part about it is all the kids and stuff all, bitch at me. Oh, don't say that, Brian. And then, of course, the Americans are all like, make America great again. Fuck you. We're going to trade tariff. These people haven't been through economic recessions, let alone depressions. But I'll tell you, from my 30 years in the market, I've never seen trade wars end well. And basically, we're sowing the seeds for this. It's ironic that this trade war was put on right as the economy was the strongest. So if anything, if you're going to have this trade war, now's the time to do it. Because when the economy's in the shitter and people are losing their jobs and stuff, all this trade war stuff will disappear. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. Only time will tell.
Indeed, as they say. This one's got my attention just scrolling through here. I know this isn't quite market structure worthy, but this Micron is something that's floated around often. It's kind of like a darling name that people like to play in some of the Reddit sub forums. And
I saw some guy came out and said Micron is our #1 sell right now.
I see a lot of that.
Way too overvalued.
And I almost disagree.
You'd almost disagree?
Yeah, I mean, look at this thing. We're very much oversold at this point.
Maybe pull it to like a weekly chart. Let's see where this thing's actually come from, though.
Well, yeah, on a weekly chart, this looks like a train wreck.
Yeah, I mean, the problem here is, do we actually lose that business cycle moving average? And is that a massive AB equals CD forming? So, I mean, we've come an awfully lot. And zoom out to 2008, right? Because that's actually the last market cycle bottom. So, where did this thing bottom when we actually last went into recession? And we're in the shit.
I'm going to move this to a monthly.
You're going to have to, eh? Yeah, so there's your bottom. That looks like that's like pennies a share. Put your mouse over those lows. What is that?
$1 and change.
Yeah, so be careful here, people. A great lesson in being very, very late to the cycle. Let's hunt those weekly W's. That maybe even we should be looking for monthly W's. I can see where I want to be long Micron, and it looks like it's at about maybe, I don't know, $8 or $9 a share.
Yeah, so the crazy guys like me are looking for a short-term bounce on the daily, right? So buy myself a couple months at a time. That's, bear stuff. So maybe we'll keep that to a minimum. I
suppose the one, if this market is truly strong, then your AMD should break out to new highs here.
Yeah, that's
and it should lead the market. So if it's not leading, and it's the strongest one in the sector, then that's problematic. And the ones that are laggers, and of course, keep in mind, Intel is supposed to be the biggest, baddest semiconductor company out there. And we listened to, somebody posted a little short sort of YouTube video, and they were saying that AMD is just going to eat Intel's lunch here.
Hey, so this is interesting. Not only are we, we're past a reload zone, right? This is your 88.6 level. We do have a daily div that is confirmed. We are oversold. My indicator doesn't look too happy. I mean, can you buy Intel in the face of all this crap going on and, potential for sort of a shift in dominance in this space?
I just give it to the end of the month, right? We're now we're still not into June yet, right? So I would say, this is maybe pull up like a weekly chart and give this chart maybe like 4 or 5 weeks to actually try and carve out some sort of bottom here.
Mm-hmm.
I could very easily see them stab down to that 200 weekly moving average, take out those lows. Everybody goes bear. Oh, sky's falling. And then your trade comes in. And I think, look at all those moving averages at Confluence there around $40-$50, eh? So, that $50 area, beg your pardon, and that funny little notch on the profile there. So if there's going to be counter trend rallies, probably into that $50 area. That's probably your trade. But my advice here, everybody, is just give the market a few weeks here before you go and start, calling bottoms here. That again, though, look at that beautiful weekly W back. Whoops. If you could just put the Intel chart back on there. Yeah, back in, looks like it was out of the summer of 2017. That's the kind of breakouts that we want to see for us to actually believe that this is a bull market.
Yes, the safe. I like that. All right. So we're 40 minutes past. I don't know if we gave any good commentary here. It was like a mix of macro with equities and little fixed income and some.
Well, we haven't heard from you in a while. We had lots to catch up on. All right, let's hop on over, take a look at good old crypto. Oh, there's a sound bite.
That's, I think that's pretty much what I hear every time I log on to Twitter these days.
Now I'm hearing all the Twitter OGs are saying, Dominance is going to come down 20-30%, and the altcoins are all going to have a fantastic rally here. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It was interesting to see people like Adam and Alex were debating the turtle guys charts and their bullish percentage index, which actually is kind of cool. I didn't realize it was a bullish percentage index. I just wonder whether they're actually using point and figure charts to determine that, or some other metric. But anyway, I'd love to hear what's on your mind. Coming out of that TRI SOF meeting last night, you were like, holy shit, I got a short crypto here. And last night, prices did come off a chunk. So congratulations on that call. Nice call.
Thank you.
What are you seeing now?
What am I seeing now is a convoluted idea of a bull market that is trying to figure out, does it want to continue bulling? I think maybe we should just go through the news.
Before you move on, I just saw that IOTA on your screen there. Just a quick blurb. Yeah. One gentleman, Raf, he's got a big old long name. I can't pronounce all of that damn name, but Raf XX Deutschland Team Inc. whatever. He was commenting about IOTA wallet issues. So there is something funny going on here. I don't think it's like broader crypto related. I think it's just like a wallet update stuff. So just be cognizant, everybody who has this IOTA and is moving it around. There are some issues with that, but sorry to derail you there. I just wanted to mention that.
No, it's interesting because they're trying to move away from their centralized model and try to adopt more of a decentralized model here. I don't know anything about this thing. I might actually own it, which is sad. But that was kind of in the news, and I saw a couple of guys were debating.
Not if it's going up.
Right. You know, you got to own a piece of everything.
If it's going down, then yeah, it's sad. But if it's going up, hey, no, that's brilliant.
Right. Yeah, I'm brilliant. I picked this one on purpose. I knew it would eventually rally within the next 15 years that I owned it. So I don't know. This is a weird icon. I don't even know.
I was just going to say, number one reason why little old lady owns everything is that something will eventually go up.
Yeah,
just kidding.
I used to know what this thing did, but now that I'm looking at the logo of this coin, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this. It looks like a shower head. Like, look at this. It's got
what
those little...
just said. Yeah, there you go.
Did she? Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. Okay.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, either that or dirty people. Not sure which one.
Okay.
Been a while, right? Anyway, so that's in the news for IOTA. I don't know if there's anything else worthy of talking about there, but there was an interesting article that I saw about this Facebook cryptocurrency that they're dubbing as Global Coin. We've been talking about that for the last couple months, that Facebook's going to launch their own cryptocurrency and yada, 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 and this is good for the space. Well, this company here decided to do a kind of like a demographic research, do some research from a demographic standpoint, try to understand what's the distribution of people that are using Facebook, how old are they, where are they from, and would they even use this thing? And, you know, without reading much into this thing, you can see here that, you know, 45% are under 34, and then 55% are over 35. So young people aren't using this as much. And who are the main adopters of cryptocurrency at this point? They're mainly millennials and younger. So moreover, you've got India as one of the largest countries using Facebook, 260 million, where US is in second place at 190 million. So basically this article concludes that the generation that uses Facebook, and from the place that, you know, the places around the world that they are, they're very low in likelihood to be using this cryptocurrency just because they don't want to, right? Like, I mean, the generation that's older than the millennials and even generation above that, they think cryptocurrency is worthless. If they can't hold it in their hands, it's not real, and they'd rather not have anything to do with it. So I think this is going to present a challenge for Facebook's adoption. But if they force you to transact on their marketplace and you can only use Global Coin, then maybe that might be a solution for the users in India who are mainly unbanked, largely unbanked, and it might.
And the Indian regulators hate crypto, eh?
Yeah, they don't have an official, like last I checked, they didn't have an official stance, but the banks basically outlawed it or prevented it from, from their users from using it. And it was a real sticky mess, but a lot of
But
them
it
are
would
in
be ironic if Facebook invested like $1 billion into all this, and then their biggest user base, they're actually outlawed from using it. That would be hilarious.
I'm wondering if Facebook's trying to become a bank here, that this is kind of their longer term play. Wouldn't surprise me.
Anyway, all right.
All right, so next thing here is not that, but Grayscale Holdings came out and talked about their BTC holdings and their assets under management. Roughly 94% of what they hold is in Bitcoin. So there you go. They hold a small amount in Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, and a few of the other coins. They also hold Ethereum Classic, which is exclusive to their company. So they're probably doing pretty well through that. Next article is that US Congress kind of hired a think tank to understand what really is Bitcoin going to be used for. Is it going to be a replacement for the dollar? And it turns out the think tank came out and said they really see it more as becoming an investment vehicle and less likely as a US dollar or currency replacement. And, this is actually a good thing, probably from a regulator standpoint. It might scare them a little less with a report like this, but then you still have this Brad Sherman guy calling to ban cryptocurrency altogether. So, you're always going to have this kind of crazy stuff going on in politics. But, this is an interesting study that people really do see this as that. And mainly it's because of the hodlers and people that are expecting to get rich quick from buying into crypto.
I've talked about this at length. Bitcoin is just far too volatile to actually be used as a currency.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. And, the powers that be, they don't want crypto to take over as a currency. So they're going to keep injecting volatility into this.
Yeah, exactly. So next thing here, speaking of volatility, this OK Exchange executive says Bitcoin is going to go past $20,000. Now, on the surface, I thought this was a dumb article. Then I actually started scrolling through that. We actually had some good data here. So Bitcoin holders are on the rise. They have a graph here from guys that are holding 10 to 100 Bitcoin and individuals that are holding 100 to 1,000 Bitcoin. So the larger holders sort of kind of came off a bit into the middle of 2018. They probably sold as the market went down. This data is not updated past, looks like January or February of this year, but the 10 to 100 Bitcoin holders have steadily increased into that bear market. So they're saying that the addresses holding between 100 to 1,000 Bitcoin saw a 6% decrease. But again, there's a larger increase in those that are holding smaller amounts. So that was interesting. And then they're saying that they're getting about 1 million new Bitcoin holders every month based on this analysis of 60 million wallets holding the cryptocurrency. So they're basically concluding here that adoption is increasing, that people are seeing this as sort of as an investment vehicle and are interested in and really see it at higher prices than what it is now, even in the face of this kind of bear market. So, or in what was the bear market. I don't know. Are we calling the bear market dead yet?
I'm calling it Chop Vegas.
Yeah, that sounds like a safe bet here. Ethereum's in the news again. Ethereum transactions are getting close to 1 million again, the highest level since February of last year. That topped 1.2 million.
Chop Vegas. Sorry.
Right. How could we forget? So, Ethereum's actually increasing in adoption as well. More and more transactions, more transfers are on the rise. You've got more utilization of the network. And in fact, fees are extremely low, right? You can send a whole bunch of this stuff for just 4 cents. And if you want to speed it up, you just double it to 8 cents. And the network hash rate has recovered, but not quite as much as what it was back last year before all the miners went offline. But nonetheless, very encouraging for Ethereum too. People are using the network and are interested in transacting on it, as highlighted by these graphs. You can see through the crypto winter, this thing just going and did nothing. And then that dip down below to 3,000 at the beginning of the year in Bitcoin was sort of the low in transactions on the network. And ever since then, we've just kind of been rising
That's
higher.
actually, I've been making the case that I think Ethereum's undervalued, and it could easily be up in like the $400 or $500 coin area.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
kind of chart and that kind of fundamental driver, I think, is what might cause it.
yeah, bullish. I mean, 38.2 is what, like 400 and change?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers just in front of me. Let's see, Ethereum. Yeah, well, according to this, just quickly eyeballing, and this isn't, I don't think this is off of the peak. Yeah, this is, so like you see your little fundamental driver, it has sort of network transactions up in this area up here. And yet the price is languishing. Of course, there's our good old trending signal. This thing's uppy. But if we go off of the actual all-time highs, 38.2 sitting better part of $600. So and Bitcoin has done this, right? I mean, we're actually doing this right now with Bitcoin off of the all-time highs. I think we were talking, Bitcoin 38.2 is 9,400, and here we are at like 83, 8,400. That's just a hop, skip, and a jump away. I've made the argument repeatedly that I think that Ethereum is undervalued here. Does that mean that we can actually go and justify buying at this level? I don't know. That's another conversation altogether. But I do think that Ethereum could play catch up here. And I just wanted to mention that, looking at that fundamental data, it actually is showing that, price actually should be higher.
Yeah, so on this OKX chart, I'm seeing 38.2 is $420. But
okay, that's interesting. What's what high are you using?
It doesn't have all the data, right? So
yeah, so the problem is this launched much later than some of the other exchanges. So I would assume it's a much higher, not much higher, but 38.2 would probably be. I think we did it when you were gone. I was looking at some of the other charts. So if I use like Coinbase, for example.
Yeah, I mean, this happens to be a stamp chart,
Yeah, Coinbase is almost at $600.
Yeah. So, I mean, you never know how the hell this thing's going to get there. Does it do it in a day? Does it take a month? Does it take the next 2 years? Who knows? But for whatever it's worth, I still think that Ethereum is got a long way to go here.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too, I find, is that sort of the rock star status of Vitalik and stuff. I don't hear many people talking about Vitalik anymore. And, so if anything, that's also a sign that, as soon as he starts doing music videos again and all that kind of nonsense, we'll know that it's topped out. So,
yeah. All right. I'm going to run through the last of these here. And I think this might be an important one to mention. There's an exchange called Nova that is moving to support all the tokens that were listed on Cryptopia. I don't know if that helps anybody because I know they're in liquidation. It's hard to get access to those coins. But if you were able to rescue them and you're having problems finding where to house some of these, maybe look into this Nova. I didn't look at their website. I don't know if it's a legit exchange. Do your own research kind of idea and cover your own ass and make sure you don't send your tokens to some guy in wherever the Nigerian prince trying to steal your riches.
Well, if this has got Jonas's seal of approval, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
You haven't really heard too many like scandals coming out of Sweden, though.
Right. Okay, Jonas has coins there, so maybe
Jonas is good. We got to come in and Jonas got to go. IKEA Nova is a good exchange.
So hopefully that's helpful for somebody. I'm just going to quickly run through the Craig Wright. If you're going to slander this guy and you're going to call him out for whatever, you better be prepared to be slapped with a lawsuit. He slapped this guy, Peter McCormick, for £100,000 for libel. And it's serious. This guy's got to either get a lawyer or he can settle or he can fight. and it looks like a really crappy position to be. So I think we're going to cover our mouths. If there is anything bad to say about Mr. Wright, we're going to leave that to the legal department to deal with.
Dr. Peter McCormick? Is he actually a doctor?
Yeah, I heard he's a doctor of getting lawsuits. No, I don't actually.
Well, I remember Craig Wright's a doctor in theology or something crazy like that. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
The doctors are going against each other, are they?
Whatever they want to do, let them have their fun. Just be, I guess, if you're a public figure or you've got a podcast that someone can listen to, and you make fun of this thing.
How would a court actually decide what, somebody saying that they're one person and then another person saying, no, you're not? How on earth does a court say that that's libelous? I don't know. That's going to be crazy.
Well, sure, that's going to be really hard to prove, but I think the point is it's going to be really costly for anyone that decides to go up against him, right? You're going to have to pay for the lawyers, and
yeah,
that ain't cheap. I got 2 articles here sent by Joji that I haven't read yet. These are about KYC rules that may be revamped for a lot of the exchanges that looks like they're proposed or recommended by the FATF, or the Financial Action Task Force. And they're having a consultative meeting in Vienna, or they did have a consulting meeting on the 6th and 7th of May to voice their concerns. And it looks like they want to propose these new KYC operations. I don't know. I need to read this article. You know what? Let's just put this on pause because this thing looks like it needs more attention than just a quick scan here. So,
Alex, were you aware of this?
Nope.
Okay. So thanks for sharing that, Joji. I'll make sure I put this on my reading list for tonight. Anyway, we're at the top of the hour, so we got some technicals to look at. It looked like there was a nice short that's set up, or there was a nice short that's set up overnight that I took advantage of into the end of the SOF. But as far as what's going on now, I'm not sure if this thing's just setting up for another leg up into the end of the week, or if this thing's trying to put in a market structure top on the 4-hour. But I noticed that a lot of smart people in the lounge were pointing out that, hey, we've got a problem here. And that problem is this potential divergence here, which doesn't look like it's going to confirm until at least tomorrow or the next day. But you can see in Bitcoin, we're getting overbought conditions. We're getting divergences. Could we be ripe for a pullback? And if so, how deep could we potentially go? I think there's a couple of different places, right? If this thing were to top out here, and this almost looks like a fractal here, if this were to just drop down, I don't know if it would be so bad to breach below $7,000. I think if we put in a market structure top, we come back in and people get a chance to accumulate short positions, that there's a higher likelihood that we might be able to breach below 7,000. But I think that this just might be the market has gone up so much and needs to kind of take a deep breath and chill out for a bit. But, I definitely, you're going to hear this out of Brian too, but obviously don't be buyers here. It's quite simple. And as far as the other names, is there a trade short here? And I would argue that no, there isn't just yet, because if you look at this divergence, it's not there, right? This is a potential divergence, and this thing actually needs to drop below the 0 line to confirm. And I think the trade's going to be there on the daily. So we're going to have to wait a couple days for that to come in. You can see how this might set up with the structure on the 4-hour, which really will be the structure on the daily. If we get rejected here by the 13 EMA, then I think we've got that drop without the structure, and you kind of go down into like the mid 7,000s. I think a Mountain Man level would make sense, kind of below value here. If we really got down to 7,500, okay. Are those buying opportunities? You got to evaluate what the market looks like in that state, right? Here's your original market structure breakout from a couple weeks ago, and that's what launched us into the $9,000 level. Maybe coming back down into that level makes sense as well. So that's what I'm seeing on the 4-hour and daily. I'll talk about Ethereum and Litecoin, and then I'll hand it over to Brian if he agrees with what I'm saying. And if not, you'll hear what he thinks. And I really think Ethereum and Litecoin are almost following in Bitcoin's footsteps. These markets are all looking very similar at this point. Same daily divergence here on Ethereum that is, again, just potential and not confirmed. Same sort of structure, fractal potential coming into the market. 4-hour chart, same thing. No obvious bear div. So all this is going to be coming in on the daily. And, is this a fake out, right? I don't know yet. You're going to have to see if that structure comes in once again. So if you're going to short this market, like a guy like me who is going to short this market, especially on a daily time frame, I have to wait for a pretty strong signal there, because I'm thinking that in the face of what's happening in this market, we could easily just go sideways, right? What'll happen on Ethereum and Bitcoin is you just get this kind of, okay, muddle along here sideways. The div confirms, but you never really get a surefire short signal. And this thing just goes sideways into next week. The Willy recharges itself a little bit. You start to see volume just trail off, do nothing, and price just sits there. That, I think, would be a way that we can alleviate these sort of bearish conditions that are entering into the marketplace on the indicators. So, I mean, unfortunately, it just seems like you got to take your cues from Bitcoin here. All these other markets are following suit. And until one of these three breaks apart from the other, it's all eyes are on the liquidity and movement of how that performs. So Litecoin seemed to have perked up a little bit more so than the other markets. I don't want to use
Today's Wednesday, right?
Say again?
Today's Wednesday, right?
Yeah, it is.
It was interesting, we talk at length about Tuesday, Wednesday kill zones in London. And I noticed that dump and then the really pretty inside bar reversal all happened right through that London kill zone last night. So I wonder whether they were just backing price up so that the London boys could actually get long.
Yeah, I was entertaining that idea last night, and when I woke up this morning, I saw the price, just like 7 green candles in a row or something, and
for guys who were short, this must have just driven them crazy.
Well, we came into
this is such a great testament to your idea that when OKCoin hands you 100-200% return on your trade. If you're trading off the lower time frames, maybe it's just a good idea to take the profit and run.
Well, the other thing is I don't like sitting in these positions overnight. You get the worst night's sleep. So as I was going into this Ethereum short, I was watching for just some kind of move to give me an excuse to get out of the position. And, had this come in during the day, I might probably have still been sitting in the position, but I was handed a pretty handsome profit percent-wise on this move down at 1 o'clock or midnight Eastern time. And I just closed the thing out as soon as I saw, if you don't watch the dumb and you're trading this market, you're handicapping yourself. I mean, this thing was telegraphed as a short for almost a full 2 hours. There was 300,000 short contracts entering the market after this market structure came in. And it was just like, okay, I'll take the position as the structure confirmed itself. And as I saw almost like 1.5 million contracts go short over that time frame, what I needed to see was for those same contracts to close out and go long. And that's what I saw. This 260, like the absolute low here, was actually a really strong floor in the market of like a couple 100,000 contracts. So when I saw that, we were just shy of the 50% level. I'm like, okay, someone's obviously looking at these fibs here. Or hang on, let me redraw these here. Because I was looking at
50% is not a fib.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, look at that, though. That is a nice Mountain Man tag, though.
Yeah, so that was an interesting tag there.
There you go. That's now let's call that a fib.
Yeah, that was a good fib. So there you go. That tagged the fib right on the head. I'm trying to, I closed out at like 267.77.
And also too, look at the high from looks like the 25th. So what I think happened here was that the price was too high. The Tuesday, Wednesday, London kill zones. London boys said, okay, we got to bring this thing back down to a level where we can get long. that previous breakout. And gee whiz, what a coincidence that also happened to be 61.8 there. So I think that's your trade idea, and it's actually really cool to hear. And man, it would be so cool if you could have recorded that. But I agree with you. You know, especially if you're trading off of these lower time frames, watching the DOM, of course, is very, very helpful. But you know, I'm leery about new people. Like, it scares the hell out of me to think of like Alicia or Colleen and stuff drilling down to these hourly charts and trading this stuff at this point in their education. Please understand, guys, this is super, super advanced trading Mr. Bear is talking to you about here today. So just a word of caution there for our audience.
So that's pretty much what I did, and that's what I see. I mean, Litecoin, I don't know. It is what it is. If you're trading that, I still think you got to take your cues from Bitcoin at this point before this thing really starts to outperform going into that halving event.
I gotta say, I'm very, very impressed with your trading of Ethereum. You know, this market really seems to speak to you. You're in tune with it, and you're just owning this market. It's beautiful to watch you in action, dude.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So, and actually, it's probably a good word of warning for the audience about how long into, because you and I have been working together for now a good probably 4 years. About how long into your education did you feel as though, okay, I've got a plan, I'm comfortable, I'm seeing OKCoin clearly, I'm in tune, I've got my setup, and I'm just gonna rock this thing? About how long into your education process with me did you feel you were at that stage?
What day is it today?
You know, I don't know. Can you ballpark it? Did it take 6 months? Did it take a year? Did it take a couple of years? What do you think?
I would say it took a couple of years, yeah, at least.
Okay, so, you know, Thomas is a living testament. You can learn how to do this and be very good at this profession. It is a profession. That means you have to act professionally. You're going to have to invest in your education and time and effort in learning this craft. But Thomas is a living testament. Every one of you can be a Thomas if you want to be. Don't we all want to be a Thomas? I want to be a Thomas.
I don't know.
He's a Thomas. Do you want to be a Thomas? Do drink Dr. Thomas, be a Dr. Thomas.
All right.
Does anybody remember that commercial? Now that commercial's going back a ways. I don't know if anybody even knows what product I was just selling there.
I think you just nominated yourself for karaoke for the Vancouver.
Dr. Pepper, very good, Will. Excellent. And now, yeah, but and it was so funny. Like those guys were singing that Bitcoin song, and I could hear myself in the background, totally singing off key, out of sync with everybody else. So I am the worst singer in the world. But nonetheless, at least I sang the Dr. Pepper song correctly. Anyway. All right. So it's actually interesting because when I look at good old Bitcoin, I see just off of my screen that we've rallied right back up into trendline resistance, and now we're waffling again. Because this was a V bottom, I actually wouldn't be surprised if we actually have to see a test of these lows. So I kind of think actually we're in a bit of no man's land right now, a little bit dangerous. But you know, those people that did take short shots off of the highs, you know, I think that's just working away. And my sort of thinking here is that we're going through a 38.2 test right now. And you can sort of see on the profile, there's a big old muak here. So, you know, don't be surprised, people, if we are going through the process of sort of consolidating this most recent gain. I wouldn't be in a big hurry to strap on new longs just yet. I still think, you know, for whatever it's worth, I still think that we're in sort of the cleanup phase of this market. So that's the only thing I think I could add to what Thomas has told you here. And I think that sort of sounds the same message that he's giving you. I'm a little bit leery about getting too aggressive on the short side.
if you are playing these, hourly charts, intraday swings, great, awesome rocket. But actually, what was really interesting to me is the moving averages are all very comfortably bullish. I don't think that we actually start getting technical breakdowns and actually start hunting shorts, especially off of something like the dailies, until these moving averages actually start coming together and then start crossing bearishly. And that's probably like maybe about a month or two away, if it even does come. So the only thing I would add is, yes, potential divergences could confirm here, which again is going to just sort of say more pause, more pause, more pause. Yes, moving averages are very far apart, suggesting that maybe we've gone a little too far too fast, but just a little bit too early for me to actually start thinking about shorts just yet. Other than that, I think on balance, we were you got. I think you nailed the market pretty solidly there, sir. So thank you so much for your report. The only other thing that I think I might just add to this conversation is I'm hearing, like I said, I had sort of said earlier, hearing lots of chatter about maybe Bitcoin dominance is done. I did see people on Twitter and stuff talking about them expecting a good 20-30% correction in dominance. It looks like that's developing now. So, little altcoins, especially, Joshua's more sort of fundamentally sound altcoins should enjoy a half decent environment right now. And actually, this is a kind of cool testament. So here is Joshua's fundamentally sound altcoin index. And this is, of course, versus Bitcoin. And you can see the well-defined W that's trying to come in relative to Bitcoin. So if we're lucky, let's see this W come in. And then I think we can start thinking about sort of the intermediate names taking off and enjoying a nice rally. And that's sort of what I'm thinking right now. I would imagine that Trex is kind of in the shitter right now. So I do actually like the idea Adam just said here. Binance is much higher than Trex. I gotta say, Trex is not helping themselves with all their delistings and all that kind of nonsense. So on balance, I still think that Binance is sort of the more popular exchange within the crypto sphere. But really, I don't know whether we want to get into that conversation today. I just happened to notice that Joshua's fundamentally screened index is starting to show signs of bottom here, and I'm hearing a lot of Twitterati talking about altcoins going through a little window of outperformance here. So get out there, hunt those W's. I think it's a really good idea to hunt the W's versus USD. And base your setups off of actual like dollar figures, and enjoy the rally window while it lasts. Other than that, I think I'm basically done. Have you said your piece, Mr. Bayer? He's gone on mute. I don't know whether that was intentional. He says, yep. So I think we'll probably leave it at that. What do you think, Mr. Mayor? Did we give these people some value today?
As always, sir.
Excellent. Good to hear. How's your latest hyperwave doing? Is it surging to new highs?
Yeah, just keeping being a hyperwave.
Right on. I think if anything, maybe Alex, we could maybe do like, I think we did do a hyperwave presentation with you once recently, didn't we? I seem to remember.
I think it's like 2 months ago.
Yeah, well, for an old guy like me, 2 months ago is recently. So, if you maybe, and I did notice that we had special presentations right here. I don't know whether we include. Oh, we did. Yeah, there it is. Awesome. So if you want to learn more about Alex's hyperwave, maybe check that out as well. and just get out there and have some fun in the market. It's it's certainly not a dull point in the market here. All right, I think I'll leave it at that for today. I've done my piece. Thomas has done his. And today is Wednesday, so that means we should have, I think actually we have Thomas and Julian on tomorrow. I don't know whether Julian's going to be able to make it, but definitely we got Thomas in the works here for tomorrow. So be ready, willing, and able to participate in the daily brief tomorrow, and you get another big old dose of us. So, all right, why don't we leave it at that? Have yourselves a great day, everybody. I do understand Adam's got another presentation in the works. He and Alex are just carving out when they're going to have him on next. So great content that I'm seeing out of this community. I love the fact when I look in the lounge, I see people helping each other out on a daily basis. It touches my heart. Of course, I started off this broadcast almost in tears, talking about how wonderful you people are. So why don't we leave in tears? You people are wonderful. You are probably the primary reason why I've been able to hang in here on this silly little planet. So keep on keeping on. PMA for the win. I'm eternally grateful for having all of you in my lives. I can't wait for you guys to come to Vancouver, and I'm just going to spoil you guys rotten and hopefully give you a really memorable experience. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, but all the best. You have yourselves a great day. Strip clubs. I don't know. I think strip clubs have been outlawed in Lower Mainland. Man, we used to have tons of strip clubs. They're just ridiculous here. And I don't even see many of them around anymore. So, Risen knows all the hot spots. All right, cool. All right, everybody. Have yourselves a great day. On that note, the hugs and kisses, all the best. And the only thing left for good old Brian to say at this point is thank you, Colleen. Bye for now.